Gaslighting is insidious because it operates in the shadows. Unlike overt abuse, which is visible and confrontational, gaslighting is subtle, creeping into your perception of reality until you start questioning yourself. Did that really happen? Am I overreacting? Maybe I'm too sensitive. These are exactly the doubts the gaslighter wants to implant. It's not just manipulation. It's a slow erosion of trust in your own mind. At its core, gaslighting is control disguised as concern. The narcissist wants you dependent on their version of reality. If they can make you doubt your memory, your judgment, or your emotions, you become easier to manipulate, easier to bend to their will. Every denial, contradiction, and subtle misdirection chips away at your confidence, making you vulnerable to their whims. It often starts small. A dismissive comment, "You're imagining things," a subtle reframing, "That's not what happened." Over time, these small seeds of doubt grow into a forest of confusion. You start questioning yourself constantly, and the narcissist watches, guiding the narrative while you try to navigate the shifting ground beneath your feet. Gaslighting isn't always verbal. It can be actions disguised as care, selective memory, or even staged events to make you question your perception. For example, they might hide something, then insist you misplaced it. They may contradict facts you know to be true. Or they may blame you for their behavior, insisting you provoked their anger. Each act is designed to make you doubt your clarity and reliability. The danger lies in the cumulative effect. A single gaslighting incident may feel minor, even ignorable, but repeated over months or years, it reshapes your sense of reality. Victims often report feeling confused, anxious, and insecure, as if their internal compass no longer functions. Decisions that once felt straightforward suddenly become paralyzing because every choice must be validated against the narcissist's manipulated reality. I've seen clients arrive at my office doubting their own memories, apologizing for events they didn't even instigate, and questioning their emotions in relationships. And here's the brutal truth. This isn't weakness, it's a survival mechanism. Your mind is trying to reconcile two conflicting realities, your own perception versus the narrative imposed by the narcissist. The key to breaking gaslighting is recognizing the pattern before it fully entrenches itself. Awareness is your first defense. Learn to distinguish between genuine mistakes and intentional distortion. Track incidents, validate your own experiences, and trust your perception. The moment you begin to rely on your inner reality rather than the gaslighter's version, you start reclaiming power. Gaslighting thrives on isolation, confusion, and self-doubt. It's silent, invisible, and deeply destabilizing until you learn to detect it and arm yourself with clarity. Awareness is the first step toward liberation. Gaslighting is subtle, but it follows predictable patterns. Once you recognize the tactics, you can start seeing the manipulation for what it is and protect yourself from being drawn deeper into the narcissist's web. 1. Denial and contradiction. This is the classic tactic. The narcissist denies events, conversations, or promises you know occurred. "I never said that," or "you're remembering it wrong," are common phrases. Over time, these denials chip away at your confidence in your own memory. You start second-guessing yourself, questioning whether your perceptions are valid. The goal is to make you reliant on their version of reality. 2. Minimization. The narcissist will downplay your feelings or experiences. "You're overreacting," "you're too sensitive," or "it wasn't that big of a deal," are phrases designed to make you doubt your emotional responses. Minimization shifts the focus from their behavior to your perceived flaw, subtly reinforcing the idea that your emotions are unreliable. 3. Shifting blame. Gaslighters rarely accept responsibility. When confronted, they turn the tables. "You made me do it," or "this wouldn't have happened if you hadn't." By transferring accountability to you, they maintain control and keep you in a state of self-doubt and defensiveness. 4. Confusing information. They may provide conflicting stories, half-truths, or selective facts. This keeps you off balance, constantly trying to reconcile their narrative with reality. When you begin questioning your judgment, they have effectively gained power over your thought process. 5. Emotional exploitation. Gaslighters often weaponize empathy, guilt, and trust. They might say, "If you really loved me, you'd understand," or "I can't believe you don't trust me." By tapping into your emotions, they manipulate you into justifying their behavior and excusing their distortions. 6. Isolation. A long-term gaslighting strategy involves cutting you off from outside perspectives. Friends, family, or colleagues are subtly undermined. "They don't really understand our relationship," or "you can't trust anyone else's opinion." By isolating you, the narcissist ensures their distorted reality is the dominant one you rely on. 7. Triangulation. They may introduce a third party to validate their narrative or contradict your perception. This can be friends, colleagues, or even children. The narcissist uses triangulation to reinforce confusion and manipulate the perception that you are wrong or alone in your understanding. Gaslighting works precisely because it attacks the foundation of your internal reality. It fosters confusion, self-doubt, and dependency. Victims often feel trapped, anxious, and paralyzed in decision-making. But once the tactics are recognized, their power begins to crumble. Awareness, documentation, and self-validation are essential tools. Track events, validate your memory, and seek support from trusted allies. The moment you start trusting your perception instead of the narcissist's narrative, you reclaim the authority over your own reality. Gaslighting thrives in silence and uncertainty. Clarity is the ultimate defense. Gaslighting doesn't stay subtle forever. Left unchecked, it escalates, layering confusion, fear, and self-doubt into a psychological trap that can take months or even years to untangle. The progression is often gradual, almost imperceptible, which is why so many victims fail to recognize the abuse until it has deeply affected their perception of reality. Early on, the gaslighter tests boundaries, planting seeds of doubt through small denials or contradictions. "I never said that," or "you're imagining it," may seem minor at first, but repeated over time, these small distortions create uncertainty. You begin questioning your memory and judgment. These early cracks form the foundation for deeper manipulation. As the abuse intensifies, gaslighting often becomes targeted and personalized. The narcissist identifies your emotional vulnerabilities, guilt, empathy, insecurity, or fear, and uses them as levers. A simple disagreement can turn into a psychological minefield, with the narcissist twisting your words, questioning your motives, and reframing events to make you feel unstable or overreactive. Your internal compass begins to falter. Every interaction leaves you second-guessing yourself. Escalation often includes isolation and triangulation. They may subtly undermine friends or family, convincing you that others don't understand or aren't trustworthy. Children, colleagues, or mutual friends can be drawn into the manipulation, providing the gaslighter with validation while reinforcing your sense of being wrong or alone. Isolation magnifies the psychological impact, leaving you dependent on the narcissist's version of reality. Emotional exhaustion is inevitable. Constantly questioning your perceptions, defending yourself, and processing contradictory messages wears down cognitive and emotional resilience. Victims often report anxiety, confusion, and difficulty making decisions. Even confident, self-assured individuals may find themselves doubting their instincts and reasoning. Over time, this can lead to depression, chronic stress, and a loss of self-trust. In the final stages, gaslighting often escalates to overt manipulation. The narcissist may use threats, accusations, or outright lies to control your behavior. This is combined with emotional appeals. If you loved me, you'd, or I can't believe you're treating me this way. At this point, the gaslighter is fully invested in shaping your reality, and your perception is under constant siege. The key to countering escalation is early recognition and proactive defense. Documentation, self-validation, and outside support become critical. Track incidents carefully, maintain boundaries, and consistently reaffirm your perception and judgment. Recognize that confusion, guilt, or doubt are tools of manipulation, not reflections of your reality. Ultimately, gaslighting thrives on secrecy, isolation, and uncertainty. Awareness and intervention disrupt the cycle, restoring clarity and self-trust. Once you identify the patterns and stand firm in your perception, the narcissist loses their most powerful weapon, your doubt. Once you recognize gaslighting, the next step is building concrete defenses. The goal isn't confrontation or retaliation, it's protection, clarity, and maintaining your sense of reality in the face of manipulation. 1. Document everything. Keep detailed records of interactions that feel manipulative, inconsistent, or confusing. Emails, texts, messages, and notes on verbal conversations create a tangible reference point. This serves two purposes. It confirms your memory and perception, and it provides evidence if disputes escalate or legal action becomes necessary. Documentation reduces confusion and counters the gaslighter's narrative. 2. Trust your perception. Gaslighters aim to make you doubt yourself. Counter this by consistently reaffirming your experience. Remind yourself of facts, feelings, and events as you remember them. Mental rehearsal. Repeating to yourself, "This is what happened, and my perception is valid," strengthens self-trust over time. 3. Set firm boundaries. Boundaries are crucial. Decide in advance what behavior you will and won't tolerate. This may include limiting contact, refusing to engage in arguments about your memory, or ending conversations when manipulation begins. Enforce these boundaries consistently. Gaslighters test limits, and inconsistency weakens your defense. 4. Minimize engagement in arguments. Avoid trying to prove yourself to the gaslighter. Arguing rarely changes their behavior. Instead, it often fuels more manipulation. Respond minimally, assert your perspective clearly, and disengage when the conversation becomes manipulative. Silence is a powerful tool against gaslighting. 5. Build an external support system. Isolation strengthens the gaslighter's power. Seek support from trusted friends, family, or therapists who validate your perception. An external perspective helps counter the internal confusion gaslighting creates and reinforces your understanding of reality. 6. Reinforce self-worth and confidence. Gaslighting attacks your sense of self. Counteract this with practices that strengthen your confidence: journaling, affirmations, mindfulness, or therapy. When your self-esteem is anchored, manipulative tactics have less influence over your emotional state. 7. Recognize patterns. Early awareness is your most effective defense. Identify recurring tactics such as denial, minimization, blame shifting, and triangulation. The earlier you spot these patterns, the less psychological ground the narcissist can gain. Understanding the mechanics of gaslighting allows you to respond strategically rather than react emotionally. 8. Prioritize emotional detachment. Maintain emotional distance from manipulative attempts. This doesn't mean coldness or cruelty. It means observing interactions without letting them destabilize your internal reality. Emotional detachment reduces the gaslighter's leverage and diminishes the cycle of control. Gaslighting thrives on secrecy, doubt, and isolation. By documenting events, trusting your perception, enforcing boundaries, seeking support, and maintaining emotional detachment, you reclaim control over your mind. The narcissist's power comes not from what they say, but from your reaction. Neutralize the reaction, and you neutralize the abuse. The moment you understand the mechanics and commit to protecting your reality, gaslighting loses its grip. Clarity becomes your weapon, boundaries your shield, and self-trust your foundation. Even after escaping a gaslighter, the effects can linger. Long-term exposure reshapes your thought patterns, emotional responses, and self-perception. Understanding these consequences is essential for reclaiming autonomy and rebuilding confidence. The first long-term effect is chronic self-doubt. Victims often question their memory, judgment, and intuition for months or years. Decisions that once felt straightforward now trigger anxiety. Am I overreacting? Am I remembering this correctly? The narcissist's repeated distortions implant a lasting fear of trusting oneself. Emotional hypervigilance is another common outcome. After repeated gaslighting, victims anticipate manipulation in almost every interaction. You may find yourself constantly analyzing words, searching for hidden meanings, and second-guessing intentions. While this was once a survival mechanism, it becomes exhausting and can hinder authentic relationships if not managed. A third consequence is attachment disruption. Gaslighting undermines trust, not just in the abuser, but in others as well. Friends, colleagues, and romantic partners may be viewed with suspicion. Emotional intimacy becomes difficult because the mind has learned that trust can be weaponized against you. The effects are subtle but pervasive, affecting relationships long after the narcissist is gone. Identity erosion is perhaps the most profound impact. Gaslighting consistently questions your perception, morality, and self-worth. Over time, you may internalize the narcissist's judgments, believing you are overly sensitive, irrational, or flawed. This erosion creates a gap between your true self and the persona shaped by the abuser, making self-reclamation essential. Rebuilding requires deliberate strategies. 1. Self-validation. Practice affirming your experiences and feelings daily. Journaling is particularly effective. Writing down events and your reactions reinforces your memory and perspective. 2. Cognitive restructuring. Identify and challenge lingering self-doubt. Ask yourself, is this reaction based on reality or leftover manipulation? Distinguish your perception from residual guilt or anxiety. 3. Boundaries in new relationships. Maintain clear limits with others, even after the narcissist is gone. Rehearse saying no and trusting your instincts. Boundaries reinforce internal authority and protect against future manipulation. 4. Professional support. Therapists trained in narcissistic abuse or trauma recovery can guide you in processing long-term effects, rebuilding self-trust, and restoring emotional stability. 5. Mindfulness and grounding. Daily practices help anchor you in reality. Breathing exercises, meditation, and focusing on present moment experiences counteract the confusion left by gaslighting. 6. Community support. Connect with others who understand narcissistic abuse. Shared experiences normalize your reality and validate your perceptions, counteracting isolation. The ultimate goal is to reclaim your internal compass. Gaslighting's power exists only where self-trust is eroded. With awareness, deliberate strategies, and consistent self-care, you rebuild confidence, restore clarity, and regain authority over your perception. Gaslighting may leave scars, but it does not define your reality. By trusting your mind, reinforcing boundaries, and prioritizing self-validation, you dismantle the invisible chains and reclaim the clarity that the narcissist tried to steal. Once you've recognized gaslighting and begun recovering from its effects, the next critical step is maintaining psychological independence. Narcissists often leave behind subtle patterns of doubt and self-questioning, and without deliberate strategies, these can resurface in new relationships or interactions. Long-term resilience requires a structured approach to reclaiming authority over your mind. 1. Establish an internal reality check. Develop a habit of confirming your perception before reacting. Ask yourself, what evidence supports my memory or feelings? Compare it with trusted documentation, notes, messages, or journals. Over time, this reinforces confidence in your own reality and makes it increasingly difficult for manipulative narratives to gain traction. 2. Strengthen emotional boundaries. Gaslighting thrives on emotional manipulation. Learn to recognize triggers, guilt, nostalgia, empathy, and respond intentionally rather than reactively. Saying no, taking breaks from difficult conversations, or refusing to engage in manipulative dialogue preserves your autonomy. Emotional discipline is your shield. 3. Practice assertive communication. Assertiveness is different from aggression. It's the ability to express your perspective, needs, and boundaries clearly and calmly. When confronting manipulative behavior, focus on facts, not emotion. I remember it this way. This is my boundary. I will not engage further. Clarity disarms attempts to twist your words. 4. Recognize early manipulation in new relationships. Gaslighting doesn't only occur in romantic contexts. Colleagues, friends, or family members can use similar tactics. By understanding the warning signs, denial, minimization, blame shifting, and contradictory narratives, you can protect yourself before manipulation escalates. Early recognition reduces vulnerability. 5. Reinforce self-trust. Daily self-trust isn't automatic. It must be rebuilt and maintained. Daily practices like journaling, affirmations, mindfulness, and reflective meditation reinforce your confidence in your own judgment. Whenever doubt arises, revisit your internal compass rather than seeking validation from others. 6. Cultivate supportive environments. Surround yourself with people who respect your reality and reinforce your perception of truth. Communities of survivors, therapy groups, or trusted mentors provide external validation, but they also teach you to trust your internal processes rather than becoming dependent on others' interpretations. 7. Monitor long-term patterns. Even after leaving a narcissistic relationship, triggers may arise: a subtle comment, an unexpected email, or a nostalgic memory. Anticipate these triggers and respond with prepared strategies. Review documentation, maintain boundaries, or seek support. Repetition reinforces resilience. 8. Maintain psychological detachment. The ultimate goal is to separate your internal reality from external manipulation entirely. Detachment doesn't mean disconnection from relationships. It means observing interactions without allowing others' distorted narratives to undermine your judgment. This discipline protects your autonomy in all areas of life. By combining awareness, documentation, emotional boundaries, and daily reinforcement of self-trust, you create a mental framework impervious to gaslighting. The narcissist's power is rooted in doubt. Remove the doubt, and the influence disappears. Psychological independence is not just recovery, it's prevention, ensuring that manipulation cannot reclaim authority over your mind. Gaslighting is perhaps the most insidious form of narcissistic abuse because it attacks the very foundation of your reality. Unlike overt hostility, it is subtle, pervasive, and gradual, leaving victims doubting their memory, judgment, and emotions. Over time, it undermines self-trust, distorts perception, and creates a dependency on the abuser's version of reality. But the power of gaslighting exists only where doubt resides. Remove the doubt, and the manipulation collapses. The first step in reclaiming your life is recognition. Understanding the patterns, denial, minimization, blame shifting, contradiction, and triangulation is crucial. Awareness allows you to see manipulations for what they are, rather than internalizing them as flaws or errors in judgment. Once recognized, the gaslighter loses their invisibility and their tactics lose potency. Next is documentation and validation. Writing down interactions, tracking discrepancies, and affirming your experiences reinforces your perception. Each recorded event acts as proof against distortion, strengthening self-trust and providing clarity in moments of confusion. Documentation also serves as protection if disputes escalate in co-parenting, work, or legal contexts. Boundaries are essential. Firm, non-negotiable limits on interaction prevent the gaslighter from accessing your emotions and thoughts. Silence, disengagement, and refusal to debate their narrative are critical tools. Every time you enforce a boundary, you assert control over your mental space, stripping the gaslighter of influence. Emotional resilience is cultivated deliberately. Victims of gaslighting often experience lingering anxiety, self-doubt, and hypervigilance. Mindfulness, journaling, therapy, and supportive networks help rebuild confidence, clarify perception, and process residual trauma. Recognizing that emotional responses are valid while distinguishing them from manipulation restores internal authority. Self-trust is the ultimate shield. Every strategy, awareness, documentation, boundaries, and emotional reinforcement is designed to restore your confidence in your own mind. When you trust your perception and judgment, the gaslighter's influence evaporates. You no longer need external validation from them, and their attempts to manipulate become powerless. Long-term, the goal is psychological independence. Even in new relationships, vigilance ensures early detection of manipulative patterns. Daily practices of self-reflection, affirmation, and emotional boundaries fortify your autonomy. Awareness of triggers and maintaining clarity in interactions protect you from repeating past vulnerabilities. Gaslighting leaves scars, but it does not define your reality. The narcissist's power is rooted in your self-doubt. Reclaiming clarity and trust neutralizes their influence permanently. Awareness, boundaries, self-validation, and resilience together create a life where manipulation cannot thrive. Ultimately, liberation from gaslighting is not about revenge or confrontation. It's about reclaiming authority over your mind. By trusting your perception, documenting reality, maintaining boundaries, and nurturing self-trust, you step out of the web of manipulation and regain control over your life. The gaslighter loses their power the moment you stop questioning yourself. You emerge not just free from abuse, but equipped with the tools to prevent it in the future. Confident, grounded, and unwavering in the truth of your own experience.